Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of Recreation Parks Advisory Committee to order. I'm filling in tonight for Kendrick. He's joining us virtual. He thought might be better for me to fill in on kind of the environment that we're in tonight. First of all, on the agenda, the approval of the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Ayes have it. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes?
Yes, sir.
Is there a
Motion to approve.
Motion to. Discussion? Minutes are approved. The minutes were of November 23rd, 2020. Turn it over now to Dr. Woodruff, our city manager. Parks Master Plan.
Good evening. First of all, for the public, due to the governor's emergency declaration, the city has adopted the rules of procedure for virtual attendance. So tonight we actually have two members of the Recreation Advisory Committee who are joining by virtual means, as well as Councilmember Jackson. One of the interesting things about this is that while you can join virtually, we have to make sure that on all motions, or even when someone is making a comment, like we have three who are joining us virtually, please identify yourself before you make the comment, and also make absolutely certain when you vote that you are voting not with some type of sign such as thumbs up, but that you actually say, for example, I'm so-and-so and I vote in favor of the agenda item or the minutes. So we do appreciate the fact that this is going to be a process that we will all participate in probably for many months. So while this is the first time a Recreation Advisory Committee has done this, I will suggest to you that probably most of the year 2021, we will meet in similar circumstances and we will have many people participating by virtual means. So any questions on the way we have to operate before we begin the Parks Master Plans? Okay. You will recall back in November, we had the first meeting on this, and you will also recall that several years ago, almost 10 years ago now, that the mayor and council and the Recreation Advisory Committee worked with a consultant to create a master plan. And that master plan was completed, it was adopted, but as we've discussed before, it did not actually create a master plan for each of the parks. In our last session in November, you reviewed the master plan for Wooten Park, for Georgetown, for Kerr Street, and for Wilson Bay. And this evening, what we'd like to do is to continue with reviewing as many of the master plans as we possibly can. For the public, each master plan is set up the same way with the same components. For example, it says in it the name of the park. It then talks about the classification. Then what are the master plan components? Then what is the proposed 10-year capital improvement projects for that park? And then what are the 5-year maintenance plans for that park? So this evening, Susan and Michael are going to walk you through each of the parks as long as we can find that we're being productive. If we get through all the parks, fine. If we get through just 4 or 5 this evening, that's fine, and we'll come back at the next meeting. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Susan to begin to walk us through that, please.
Thank you, Dr. Woodruff. I wanted to just recap. We did discuss the 4 in length. I sent each of you a packet home that had maps and some information on them. So I want to just quickly go over those because if you had any feedback, you're welcome to give that to us now. But the ones I gave you in looking for the next set of feedback was Phillips Park. Do you guys recall getting those packets?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have Phillips Park, just quickly, these are the components that we've included there. Let me just jump to the, map, so we can kind of discuss those components. But we have, Phillips Park is proposed for new restrooms, obviously, and then 4 playground, inclusive playgrounds with soft structures, a walking path that goes all the way around, and you can see it's been reconfigured as far as the layout goes, as well as a maintenance building, and then redesign on circulation and the entrance. So, did anybody take a look at that? Any feedback on what we're proposing for Phillips Park?
Let me make a comment before you do. When the staff and I looked at Phillips Park, we are quite aware that it at one time did have a landfill configuration. So what we're trying to do is convert Phillips Park from what it has been in the past, which is multiple sports, to really one of our premier children's parks. In time, we would move away from it, anything having to do with balls and bats and soccer fields and those type things. Now, we understand today it's used that way, but our goal is to have Phillips Park become literally a children's playground with just massive opportunities for multiple playground type activities. So with that, that kind of helps you understand, first of all, if you're flying over at 10,000 feet, and you can see the outline, yes, guess what? It looks like some type of dragon or some type of special, maybe this is the Loch Ness Monster for Jacksonville, but it's purposely designed that way to encourage young people, children especially. Lori, I believe you had a question.
No, I was just gonna, basically what you had said, if that has anything, the previous landfill to do with being there. I know previously when we talked about doing things years past, I think, Mr. Spring, there were some, issues, concerns about digging and poking holes in the ground and all that good stuff. I didn't know if anything further, us doing anything else there would hamper that.
We don't believe so, and what we've also tried to do is locate things in areas where we believe that we will not have to dig anything deep. We do know that the closer to the water you get, the more potential you have for certain landfill activities. But we also know that as long as we stay, what I'm gonna say is generally close to the top, and also the further up you get towards the head of the interesting animal, whatever we're gonna call that, we get completely out of the area where the landfill was located.
And then the other question I had was with the flooding, the horrible hurricanes we had years previous, how much of this would be underground if it were to happen again?
Michael, you got a thought?
Well, I think we would have to have a significant event, obviously, for that to happen. The good news is there's an existing barrier between what is there today, and hopefully, chances are we'll have something in the next 20 years, but hopefully, we should continue to move forward. No matter what was built out there, even the ball fields, we would run into that issue, but luckily, I don't think that's an issue that we would see unless we had an extremely significant event.
And that's all brackish water in there also. I'm
Yes.
sorry. So the equipment that we use is pretty much coated, not that it's not going to erode eventually anyway, but if something were to happen, easily the water goes away,
Well,
recedes, and
I think the potential would be maybe some surfacing could get damaged, but I'll have to look into that, to be honest with you. I haven't seen how brackish water would affect glued rubber surfaces if that's what we were going to put down there, and I would think it is, but we'd have to look into that a little further.
those are the only things I had on that
Yeah.
part.
Good point, son.
Jim Wheeler, a question and a comment. Dr. Woodruff, you mentioned about trying to stay close to the surface when we go in. The only thing on the proposed diagram that looks like it may be an issue is the shelters. My experience with Brook Valley shelters, they've got some 12 by 12 posts, and I'm certain those things are buried in the ground a good way. So that's something that can probably overcome with our city engineer, come up with an alternative way instead of going deep fasteners. The other thing is the location for the kayak launch. I'm glad it's down there because that's about the only place in that stretch of water that you can routinely launch a kayak because it gets pretty shallow as you go
Right.
upstream.
Great.
Homer Spring. Of course, I guess I don't need to tell you who I am. You see what you've started? I'm glad to see a kayak launch where we have our informal kayak launch sometimes, but, I do have a question with the large amount of playground area. This, right now, in this configuration, it does run down to the water's edge with little or no barrier. Is that a concern safety-wise for children that are playing in the playground to get down toward that edge of the water?
Once again, as Michael said, good question. Of course, I'm of the opinion there is no such thing as bad questions. So answering questions like that or asking them is important. You're correct. There will be ancillary things that aren't shown on the master plan, such as fencing, such as water fountains, anything dog walk areas or whatever. But certainly when we get to the point of actually the final design, those will come back eventually to the Recreation Committee and eventually to the City Council. But including things such as fences and the ancillary things you mentioned, absolutely, they need to be there.
Any comments from our virtual folks, Mr. Lane and Mr. Rogers?
No, I'm okay right now.
Okay, thank you. Well, if no other further suggestions, which we all appreciate your questions and suggestions, we'll move on to the next one. The next one we have for you is Northwoods Community Center. We do have some changes on this we're extremely excited to talk about, but we have the main components are a community center, playground, parking lot, open space, basketball, and picnic shelter. But what we're proposing is actually to expand that community center. I think you all have heard us talk about our challenges with indoor facilities, so that's something you're gonna see getting addressed with our facilities. And what we're proposing for Northwoods is to expand out to the back, maybe not necessarily the actual building, but an auxiliary building or an additional building of some sort. So we're proposing, hopefully in the next couple of years, to be honest with you, something that's going to be added to the space so that we can further accommodate our kids and our evening classes and all of the things that Northwoods area and the general public are looking for in that location. So that's going to be a really nice thing. In addition to that, we will keep the basketball court. We're just going to move it. And then new picnic shelter and, you know, that's basically new playground surface for the, Northwoods was the first one to get a playground, soft playground surface. For the most part, yeah. So it's a little hard to see on here because that's just the general space. We don't know exactly what that expansion is gonna look like. It might be two somewhat different buildings just attached by a breezeway, or it could be the whole thing. We're just in the early stages of design at this point, but not a whole lot different. The biggest exciting news on that is just additional indoor facility space. It won't be a gym. It'll just be multi-purpose. It'll just give us more room to run around and provide better services, more room for the kids. We can accommodate a lot more kids if we had more space.
I think the good news there, you may recall that we all agreed, the council agreed to sell the old fire station on Barn Street. It has been a process, but we have now been told by the realtor and the owner that they will close by the end of this week. Now, when that happens, that is a sale, and I'm going to use a round number that's not exact. I believe that sale will produce $127,000. Also, remember in previous budgets, because we were going to modernize and upgrade the Barn Street station for recreation, the city has already budgeted $188,000 in the current and previous budget. So when you combine the two in simple math, which is where the finance director makes me play, we have a little over $300,000 now to move forward that the city council has already agreed. They've agreed that the sale Fire Station 2, all of that money will go to recreation, and therefore, we have roughly $300,000 to proceed now with expanding that building. We have hired an architect, John Sargent Associates out of Wilmington. They've met with the staff. They're currently coming up with some concepts, and they understand that the budget is $300,000. Don't bring back a $500, $600 million facility. So in the very near future, we hope that we'll be in front of the Recreation Advisory Committee again to show you some concepts to begin to implement what Susan just mentioned to you. As she also stated, though, the basketball court will need to be relocated, and we need to get a cooperative agreement with the school board. And Susan has already met with the school board and begun that process.
Yes, sir.
Jim Wheeler, the only question or comment is parking issue, because currently we share a parking lot with the school. And, I've been by there, the school side gets pretty full, and matter of fact, it comes over on the rec center side sometimes. So that's something that either additional parking, or make sure if we have big events there, we coordinate it with the schools in session or not.
Yes, sir, absolutely. I think we can work that out. The nice thing about rec facilities being paired with school facilities is we don't tend to have same things at the same time. So it does tend to work itself out with either weekend or evening hours, but absolutely, I think, it's a good point, for sure. Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. Yes, Mr. Ross.
Bill Ross. Restrooms, I didn't see it listed here.
Yes, you talking about for the new part?
Right.
Yes, we'll have to address restrooms in the new facility, yes, sir.
One of the benefits to expanding this area, if you'll remember, is this has always been a rec center that services or could service a lot more children than we're able to take in. Susan has a challenge right now because there are actually an after-school site as well as a summer site and year-round school. There's a lot of moving parts to a facility like this, and a lot of children that use this facility could be using this facility that we're not able to service because of the numbers that we can only take in. So there's going to be a benefit to the community, to the kids that go to that school, as well as their parents in the long run.
Yes, thank you, absolutely, true. Any other comments or feedback from the virtual folks, Mr. Rogers and Mr. Lane?
No, ma'am, none at this time. No, Mike was hitting dead on when he was talking about how that when you basically serve more of the community, how you give it back more, and how that would affect the community itself. So I'm quite sure that facility will do much justice as needed.
Thank you, yes, sir. Okay, so then we will move on to the next one, which I think you all are pretty familiar with where we're going with this facilities. We have discussed this multiple times, and I'm so thrilled that we're discussing it again, but we'll quickly go over what this is gonna look like for the master plan community center with the gym, the baseball fields lit, the splash pad with shade structures we just installed, restrooms, basketball courts, those are lit, the playground, parking, open space, maintenance building, which is gonna be built, walking trail, and picnic shelters. So obviously in the next 10 years, sooner than that, we are really going to be ramping up for our new gym recreation facility. So we're thrilled that's coming sooner. And along with that, you know about the maintenance building that's going to be rebuilt and accommodate our lovely parks folks. Land acquisition as far as potentially in the future, looking to expand the footprint. If an opportunity arises, we'll certainly look at all of those as far as that space goes, walking trail and picnic shelters. That's the 10-year big picture, in addition to what we're already working on, as well as our 5-year, and that's just keeping up with the great facility that we're gonna get there and work on the parking lot and do some other general maintenance. I know that was quick, but I know we've talked about it, so don't let me not hear your suggestions. If there's anything else you'd like to see, I would love to hear it, or any questions or any updates. We're certainly happy to do that too.
Show the plan.
Oh, here it is, sorry. The gym probably is, but it maybe could be a little bit bigger on that, but in any case, that's it.
And just to keep you on the schedule, we currently anticipate that we will have bids in front of City Council by March or April, with hope that we will have a notice to proceed by June of this fiscal year. That's June of 2021. We now project that the project will be right at a $5 million project, and again, it will be a full-size gym. The maintenance building, which is shown in yellow at the top of the slide, is part of that project, as will be the resurfacing of the entire parking lot. Because when you bring in the construction equipment to build all this, you're going to, for all practical purposes, destroy the parking lot. So in the estimates, we currently are showing a complete resurfacing, not a sealing, S-E-A-L-I-N-G, not a sealing of the parking lot, but actually grinding down and milling down the asphalt and putting in a brand new coat of asphalt for the parking lot.
Any comments? Questions?
All right.
Virtual?
Virtual folks?
Fine.
Okay, great. So a new one, also we want to talk about is River Rock Crossing Park. This is exciting. We have lots of nice things planned for this park. So a couple of those components are to redevelop the depot. Obviously, we have community green space. We do need to address restrooms. We have a lot of events out there and we need to address restrooms. One idea is to do a museum at the old water plant. Dr. Woodruff has some nice ideas on that, and that might be also a location for those restrooms / museum at the old water plant. As you know, it's down at the end. A large shelter, walking path, on-street parking, open space, maintenance building. We need to do some work to the pier at the end at LP Willingham, and as well as to the gazebo at LP Willingham. So I will show you a little bit about what's in those, the 10-year CIP project, those big items such as the depot, the restrooms in the museum at the old water plant, large shelter, as well as the rebuilding of the pier and the gazebo down at the end. 5-year maintenance plan, pretty basic. Michael does a great job keeping up with those. And then I will show you the map.
Let me make a couple of comments.
Yeah.
When Hurricane Florence was in the community almost 2 years ago now, we had a failure of the drainage pipe system that goes down the middle of the park itself. That was in what we would call the garden block. Now, the garden block is let me walk you through. You have the depot, then you have what we call the presentation block, which is immediately behind the depot. Then you have the long 2 blocks, which are the garden block. And then you have the next block down, which is technically Willingham Park, and then you go all the way down to the waterfront. In analyzing the drainage system, because we not only have drainage pipes in there that drain the whole downtown area, but we also have our main sewer lines that pump all of the sewage from the city, all over the city, under the river out to the woods, out to the land application site. We're going to have to literally dig up all of the garden block and all of Willingham block and all of the block closest to the water in order to replace the entire drainage. We do currently have a FEMA grant, because it was storm related, for about $250,000 of a $400,000 project. The good news and bad news is this: we have to have that pipe installed by September, October of this year. So literally within the next 30 days, we're going to award a contract And all of the beautiful park that Michael and his staff have put into play is going to be impacted. The good news is that the drainage pipe that will be put in will be the proper pipe. It won't be metal pipe, as was put in whatever it was 20 years ago. The bad news is the entire park is going to be impacted. So I guess the news is, if you live in the neighborhood, as my wife and I do, don't expect to be walking that park for quite a while. Enjoy it for the next month or so. The other good news is that all of the cost of re-landscaping the park will then be charged to the city's stormwater fund, not to the general fund. Because it's the stormwater fund that is paying for the pipe. The purpose of digging it all up is obviously stormwater. So I want you to be aware that is getting ready to happen very shortly. The other thing that Susan mentioned was the old water plant. You know where it is. It's right next to the water tower. And the thought that we have is to possibly put a new roof on it and to open it up as a museum restroom. Now, that doesn't mean that only old folks can use the restroom there. I could tell, Steve, that you were thinking that as I said that. If you've been in the water plant, you will find that through the front doors, there is still the large generator that operated the plant. And in the next room, you will find the large 1,000 gallon per minute electrical motor. So our thought is that if you open up that as a breezeway from front to back, and you put a storefront glass on that side where all the equipment is, and then on the other side of the hall, you convert the offices into handicap restrooms. That might be a great way to use the building. Now, it doesn't mean that we will accomplish that, but remember, by putting it in the master plan, it at least gives us the ability, when you and the council adopt it, to move forward with those type of exercises. So that's what we're thinking. And then the large shelter that we talked about would actually go right next to the water plant, right next to the old building. You've been there for National Night Out, and you've seen the canopy, the portable tent. Thank you, Michael. The portable tent. That's where we're talking about building the large shelter, so that when we have things for National Night Out or families want to come down there for picnics, that's where that would go. Thoughts?
Does the city own, I know there's a house there on Want Land in West Street. Is that land behind it? It looks like a trailer. Is that ours too, the city's? Behind the water plant?
Yes, ma'am. All the way back to the trees. Now, once you hit the trees, that's part of the subdivision called Burton Place. We do not own any of that.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
Mr. Lane, Mr. Rogers?
I don't have any at all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move into what we would consider, I think Michael would agree that these next two parks are probably what we consider our regional parks. There are larger in the system. We're gonna start off with Northeast Creek, what we call the playground side. And that is the playground side that has a splash pad on it, as well as our new wonderful, wonderful inclusive playground. So obviously the components are a splash pad. We have restrooms now too. The brand new one we installed, as well as the older shelter / restroom. We're proposing large picnic shelters, the walking path. We have the inclusive playground with soft surface, open space. We're proposing a children's challenge course. We're proposing a skate park, and obviously we'll have parking. So those are the major components on that side. For the next 10 years are some of those larger items, such as a large picnic shelter, installing a children's challenge course, replacing that second restroom / shelter, installing a walking trail, and doing the skate park. And then obviously our 5-year maintenance. So if you look at the map, you can see there that we have the little the large playground area, that red oval area, if you can just envision a really nice multi-use sort of challenge course for kids, it's not gonna be clear cut in those trees. We're not taking necessarily trees out. It's gonna be incorporated into the nice space that we have there, as well as the shelter is over in that space, we're talking about replacing that. And we have the splash pad, restrooms, and then we have proposed for the skate park to be in that open area out in front. And lots of little shelters all throughout. It's a beautiful park. I'm sure Mr. Hinkle will agree. It's a beautiful park. It's extremely nature and family friendly as far as the trees go. So we really want to encourage everybody to enjoy nature. So we have lots of little small shelters as well as a large one, because it does get used heavily as far as large events go. So we want to focus on family friendly, challenge course, splash pad, playground, shelters, restrooms, all of those nice things, as well as the skate park. Okay, this is open for any suggestions, any questions. We would love to hear your feedback. Any other follow-up, Dr. Woodruff or Michael? Did I miss anything?
I think Mr. Hinkle has a question.
Okay, yes, sir.
Steve Hinkle here. The proposed skate park, I'm guessing, I can't point. Is that the big area up in the front or the,
Yes.
oh, okay, all right, good. My only thing is the skating folks were a huge presence at all of the
They were.
input meetings. Can we slide that forward in the timeline? I
Well,
mean, they were the most active people. we
they were
saw.
active. If, as you'll recall on that timeline, we had just closed our current skate park. So the timing of which we closed ours, and then we had those public input meetings were like back to back. So they were very much present to give us their feedback. As far as sliding it forward, we haven't identified the timeline per se. Your point is valid. It's within that 10-year window at this point, but we really haven't said what year or when, but we'll certainly take a look at that when we get down to the nitty-gritty on our capital improvement
Yeah,
timeline.
At 10 years, all those poor guys that were at the meetings will be like in college.
Well, you know, several of those folks had played in it when we first built it, so there's some dedicated, we have heard their concerns. I haven't,
Yes, I think they definitely need it, so.
yeah.
What was that? That's it for that part there.
Any other comments, questions?
The challenge course is, I'm sorry, is that gonna have a zip line in it?
Yes.
We would like for a zip line, yeah.
Obviously, it will not be what I'll call a high-angle zip line, since it's for younger children. But the thought would be that, pardon me?
Without us.
Well, remember, it says children's challenge course.
I missed the children piece of that. Okay.
Mr. Ross?
Something we've been looking forward to.
Bill Ross, I agree with Steve that the skating people really showed up and probably were the most vocal. And if you could see your way clear to speed it along, I think that you could easily justify it.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts on this side before we move to the other side?
Virtual.
Mr. Lane, Mr. Rogers?
No, I'm good.
No question.
Okay. All right, so going to the ball field side. So the ball field side, we have quite a few, quite a bit of changes on this one. So we're proposing a community building. We're proposing, we have a boat ramp, ball fields. You'll see on the map in a few minutes, in addition on the ball fields, lacrosse fields in the open area that we have there now, exercise stations, restrooms, new restrooms. If you're familiar with the current ones, you realize we need new ones. Large shelters, walking path, disc golf course, which is already there. Parking areas, maintenance buildings. So obviously we want to take care of our maintenance folks and the great job that our parks crew does down there. And boardwalk and open space. So a lot of those large ticket items are the ones that are gonna be included in our 10-year capital improvement, which is a community building, restroom shelters, ball field, boardwalk for sure, lacrosse fields. And we're gonna change the way the circulation and the entrance is. General maintenance on that. So, if you look, I'm not sure quite where we'll begin at the top left, ball fields. We currently have 2 ball fields there, and I'll call those softball fields. They are adult size fields. We're proposing 3. It would really round out our opportunities for larger tournaments. Right now, when we have tournaments, they play at the Commons and at Northeast Creek. You'd be surprised at what one more field can do for our system as far as really providing the economic driver, as, you know, providing really nice tournaments. So 1 more ball field, same amount of space. It'll change the configuration. For those of you who have played out there, the sun does hit it a little hard, but I think a little tweak on that configuration, because you're adding a 3rd ball field, might change that a little bit and help some of those folks that play out there in the evening hours. So moving around clockwise, there's that large lagoon area. You're familiar with the 14 acres we have. We really want to be able to utilize it. We want to do something nice with it. We have come up with the need for rectangular fields, but in particular to rectangular fields, lacrosse is a huge up and coming sport that we want to acknowledge and give them an opportunity to utilize. So that could really turn itself into a nice lacrosse facility. Moving over still, you'll see the brown boardwalk needs to be addressed. It certainly has had its challenges in the past with storms and everything else. And Dr. Woodruff and Michael have worked hard to try to come up with good solutions on that. So we'll just say that it needs to be helped, right?
We're not very good dancers.
Yeah. It's a challenge, that boardwalk.
A couple of things that we want you to understand. On the rectangular fields, we purposely did not identify them as rectangular fields. We want them to be lacrosse fields. The city is not going to compete with the soccer programs in town. They're extremely well run. We don't think that we need to do anything relative to getting into the soccer business. But we do believe that lacrosse is one of those up and coming sports that the city should invest in. We all know, whether you watch college or pro football, we know the whole issues about concussions. And we know that more and more parents are interested in programs that do not involve football. Now, many people think that the reason why I'm like I am is because I played football. And yes, I had a concussion or 2 there, Mr. Spring. But at the end of the day, it comes down to where we want the recreation program to go. Lacrosse is one of those things that we really want to get involved in. And therefore, we're specifically identifying those as lacrosse fields, not rectangular fields. The other thing is, on the community building, we want it understood that is not a gym. We are talking about a community building of probably 3,000 square feet, where you can have community meetings, you may have a computer classroom, you may have something of that nature. But we're not talking about a full-size gymnasium. Now, if you feel otherwise, you should speak up. The other thing, we are moving the entrance, like Susan said. Currently, you come in generally where the ball fields are, and you traverse through the area. We're proposing to line that up, the new entrance, with the entrance across the street, so that they match. And that will give us the ability to put in a flashing light with some crossing patterns, so that we can encourage people to safely move from the playground side to the water side.
Any comments?
Steve Hinkle here. We have adequate parking? Because we're losing like a whole parking lot for the community center. The parking lot that used to be over by the disc golf place is now under that. And a big chunk out of that.
We've talked about parking, and that's something we're addressing within the master plan while you can see that some of it is being taken away, we're going to add it in different spots as we traverse through the park, as Richard said. whether it's over there closer to the lacrosse fields or more in tune to the softball fields. I think you can see parking. So yes.
One of the other things, we realized that, that I sent to them I sent to Susan, the first draft, because we did look at that and realized that the parking closest to Corbin needs to be at least twice as large as it is. So when this is presented to city council, there'll be a new graphic that will show a much larger parking lot there. Actually, it will be from where the current parking lot is for the Frisbee golf, all the way back to the street. So you're correct. In order to have everything that we're putting there, parking is going to have to be addressed.
Mr. Wheeler?
Yes, Jim Wheeler, on the diagram, it shows two maintenance buildings, one up by the rectangular lacrosse fields and one down by the boat ramp. My question is, why two maintenance buildings? It seems like economy of building, it would make more sense to have one big one. Instead of that one down by the fishing pier, what's the first thing somebody needs to do when they get out, be out on the water? Instead of going out in the trees and doing your business, I would think another restroom down there of some sort would make more sense.
We could do that.
Yes. And I
Good
think
suggestion.
I think you're right as far as the maintenance facilities, but what I don't think we did maybe show is that the size of the buildings. I think the buildings are very different. The home building would be more towards down the water, where this would be more of a storage facility that is singular maybe to the fields that are out there.
But we can certainly add restrooms down in that area.
Sure.
Dr. Woodruff,
Yes, sir.
this is Ken Rock. What type of surface are you gonna have on those lacrosse fields? Is it gonna be directly grass or artificial turf?
Well, for economy of scale, I think we're most likely looking at grass fields. To put an artificial surface on fields of that size, and interestingly enough, the GIS folks here at the city, those are actually dimensional fields. Those are actually the size that the 3 lacrosse fields would be. So our thought would be that they would be grass fields. Now, if we're able to find enough money, maybe we could create one of those as a championship field and then make that artificial. But that's a great suggestion.
Steve Hinkler again. How about adding a sidewalk along Corbin Street to connect with the other end that stops at the tree?
Right. That's a good point.
Okay, yeah. And have we given any thought to, just getting rid of the boardwalk before we get around to replacing it? Because it looks terrible.
I think at this point, this is a 10-year program. We know the existing boardwalk has some challenges. I think what we're gonna have to do as a city is sit down, look at what is achievable out there realistically, and then move forward based off whatever that information is, whether it says in today's world, this is the type of boardwalk that can go out there, or in today's world, your chances of having this happen again are kind of like Phillips Park, the next significant storm, this could happen again. I think those are things as we move forward, we're gonna have to figure out and find out and get that information and move forward based off the information we have and figure out what direction is the right way for the city of Jacksonville.
Well, also, we have looked at removing the boardwalk because it certainly isn't anything we're proud of. What we've been told is that if you remove it, it impacts your potential permitting ability to build a new one. So what the engineers have told us is, as bad as it looks, it may be better to leave it like it is until you're ready to replace it. But that if you take it out, since it's environmentally sensitive land, that you may not ever get a permit to put it back in.
Okay, well, that's good news to know then.
But I agree with you. I mean, every time I go out there, I'm embarrassed with the condition of that boardwalk.
Yeah, it looks pretty bad. Any chance to get that dog park somewhere? Doesn't have to be here.
Anything's possible.
Okay.
That was a good answer.
I will go back through all of our parks, now that you mention it. I thought we had discussed one. It's not coming to me where we might have identified a location. But Mr. Hinkle, I mean, you're not the only one that brings it to our attention,
It
so
may
I do
not
think
even
we
be-
discussed it.
It
I
may
just
not
don't
even
know
be
where.
a location that we currently own today,
Yeah, we
as an
have,
example.
we have discussed it, and I do think we probably need to identify it somewhere. I'm just not sure where.
Michael, Susan, Jim Wheeler, at one time, we were talking about putting a small park in off of, Country Club Hargett by where the bypass goes over there. There's a little plot of ground. And I think it was decided it's too small to do anything. That might be a candidate for a dog park over there.
Potentially, the biggest challenge over there is going to be parking.
Yeah.
Parking is, and,
How much space is at the very end, towards the waterway, from the boat ramp to that Frisbee golf on this side of Holiday City? Is that enough space?
Possibly.
Possibly, yeah. We also have discussed, what this might do to our disc golfers. They're very, very active in this location, so this is gonna disrupt them, but we are adamant that we're gonna keep the integrity of their course as is. So we have to maneuver through all of their holes and try and make their course, as best as.
user-friendly as
As
possible.
user-friendly, so, they're peppered throughout that entire area. I could just tell you that, so, but we can certainly look at all of our space. We have a lot of it, which is nice with this location.
But
So.
your suggestions relative to a dog park, let's agree this, we will look at, all of our locations. Now, the area that you mentioned down near the boat ramp, if the Frisbee golf, I'm not quite sure where it ends, just because we drew it this way
Right.
doesn't mean it's 100% accurate.
It
So-
goes way down
Yeah.
there.
It
It's the
does.
longest hole on.
It does
it's the
go all the way
longest hole
down
on the
there.
course.
Yeah, but we will, as Susan said, any Frisbee golfers who are watching this, it is
Please.
our intent to keep you whole.
Yes.
We are very fortunate, we have national tournaments that come here for that, and we want to make sure we don't do any damage to what they're doing, but we will look at various locations for a dog park.
If you're looking at the lacrosse fields, the one on the far right, in front of there, it's like a semicircle shape. To the right of
Oh,
the
okay.
restroom, that area there looks pretty big.
Yep, I see what you're talking about.
Well, one thing I would tell you, in John Carter, the city attorney, and I have looked at the issue of dog parks, and one of the things that is recommended is that dog parks are not placed where other activities are going on
Gotcha.
because of the liability issue. That if you're going to set one up, it should be its own independent, location. Now, not everybody abides by that, but, that's
I
our
live over
thought.
at Williamsburg Plantation, we have one, and it's used, but it's not like Frisbee golf used. So, it's nice to have. I don't even use it. I don't have a dog, but wouldn't go there.
Great suggestions. Mr. Lane, Mr. Rogers, anything to add for Northeast Creek on this side?
No, ma'am.
Nothing at this time.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. This is good. Northeast Creek is a large park with lots of potential, so thank you so much. Now we're gonna move to, what we would, cross town, over to the Commons. We're gonna start with the Richard Ray All-American Park. As you're familiar with, this is a beautiful, what started off as, I would say, a passive park. So we have some beautiful gardens. We have a, amphitheater already there, restrooms, large and small shelters. We have a playground with a soft surface. That was our first one with the soft surface.
Thank you.
And then walking paths, parking, open space, and a labyrinth. So those are our current, components. Moving forward, we really need to address the restrooms to better accommodate the amphitheater as well as those park goers. We want to continue to enhance the amphitheater with a shell and some other amenities. Expand the playground, it's extremely popular, and when we add more and more to it, we certainly want to be able to accommodate on our playground as well as, you know, adding inclusivity to our playgrounds. And parking a handicap is a little bit of a challenge when we have events at the amphitheater. And then obviously our 5-year maintenance plan is general and keeps Michael's guys definitely busy over there. So what you'll see on this map is probably the biggest changes is a change in the restroom location, which is not where it's at, but moved. It's hard to see in the, up there?
By that half moon.
I don't think our
It's not on
updated,
there.
I don't think our updated map got there.
Okay, okay.
The restroom between the labyrinth and the, parking?
Right, what we're probably gonna do is move it, or add another restroom, I don't know that it's been decided, but the idea is to add a restroom in between the amphitheater and the playground, so, you know, within that vicinity, somewhere in that tree line, near the playground, it hasn't quite been identified, but Dr. Woodruff just said, we will certainly have that updated, for our next meetings, especially with council. You'll see we added a little bit of parking right there. That is primarily for handicap parking. We are challenged with handicap parking. And then we have the amphitheater and, maybe some more shelters and along, some other items over there throughout the park.
Any comments?
Any thoughts?
We decided what we're gonna name the amphitheater,
I'm sorry?
what we're gonna name it, the amphitheater?
Right now, we name it the Commons Amphitheater.
We name everything else, I was just wondering.
Thank you.
Lori's Amphitheater? Are you sponsored? Okay.
Just wondering, I know it's Richard Ray Park, but I was just amphitheater, normally they have somebody that's been, you know, up with music in a community, named after, that's all.
Maybe this summer, when we get back over there, we'll be able to build our momentum back up. We're excited to hopefully be able to offer a more, get back to what we would like to have done this past summer, so.
We could sell the naming rights.
AT&T.
Any thoughts on this one before we move to the Commons? Our virtual folks, Mr. Lane and Mr. Rogers?
No, ma'am, no question.
All right. So last but not least, this is, our biggest park, I guess you could say, in addition to, Northeast Creek. They're both pretty large as far as square footage. We have a lot going on. We have a, inclusive playground we still need to work on. That's in our current CIP. We have the adult center. We have outdoor basketball courts that are lit. We have a biking and running trail, several locations. We have a trail as well as a wooden trail a trail in the woods. We have large shelters. We have our ball fields, both youth and adult. We have tennis courts that have pickleball on them as well. And those are lit. We have multiple gyms proposed, community center, restrooms, and splash pad proposed. So, also adding on, we have a challenge course. We currently already have that. We have parking. We have Lake Bittner. Walking path,
named the
open
lake?
space, and maintenance building. I didn't put, I think the Lake Bittner is, you know, just our fun way of identifying our water feature out there. Okay, so in the next 10 years, we are certainly looking to add the indoor facility. I know you have heard me multiple times that we are challenged with indoor facilities, and we're even more so when we learned, you know, what schools have challenges as well with gymnasium space, so we are proposing that. Replace the restrooms at, those
Well,
ball fields.
I think anywhere at the
All of
Commons,
them?
we need to look at that.
Challenge course, inclusive playground, that's a very large playground we have back behind the gym. And it does need to be replaced, and it is in our current CIP for the next couple of years, I believe. Splash pad, we've already talked about that, and we've already done some preliminary design and concept thoughts on those. And then a maintenance laydown yard so that Michael's folks can really have an opportunity to keep up our beautiful facilities. We have a lot of maintenance to do at the Commons. We have really to start working on some things, because it's getting a little older. It's showing its age. We try to do some things every year, but we are having some paint. We need to paint. We need to update restrooms, we need to update floors. This is really kind of talking about the current rec center facility. We are replacing scoreboards because they are tending to go out more so now. Landscape, and then our concession stand inside the building is showing some real damage and some real age and wear and tear when it's been in use for almost 25 years now. Things are getting rough. So there's a lot on this diagram, but we still have our ball fields. We have 8 total. You can see from the size which ones are youth versus our adults. Those, nothing has changed there. We have our park and ride, which is a wonderful add-on to what we're doing out there. But we also have our old parking, but in between, if you look where we have our open space right now in front of the parking lot is where we're proposing an auxiliary gym. Not a facility necessarily like the rec center, but a gym facility so that we can use it in addition to our current gym, and we can use it for our programs, our basketball leagues. If we have a tournament, we can just do so much more with a gym facility. So we're proposing that in that open space. You see our tennis courts. What we have different, if you look down on the bottom corridor of the facility, right now, what we're proposing is our splash pad, restrooms, shelter, and playground down in that bottom section where the parking lot currently goes into right now. We have a lot of use down there. So we'd like to kind of work it all together and add restrooms and playground and splash pad. Can everybody see that okay? And then the basketball courts are down there. Go ahead.
Any comments?
Just out of, no, Steve Hinkle here, just out of curiosity, that proposed new gym up there, would there be a big difference in making like 2 gyms up there? Because it looks like you got enough area.
Well, I think our intentions would be to, when we say a gymnasium, an indoor facility that would have 2 floors, I think that would always be our hope.
Okay, that makes sense.
That's a great point, but yeah, I think that's our intention, is to build a gym with 2 floors in it.
Be side to side play, it would replicate the current gym. While the box that's on that open site says the word gym, if you were to physically take the existing gym and simply pick it up, you would see that it consumes all of that open space. So, one thing that's not shown on here because of the actual location is Michael's laydown yard. The bottom right-hand corner, you see the round disc, well, that's the water tank. And if you went a little further down the street, you would actually see the laydown yard, and that's where Michael operates. Fortunately, this year, we were able to go ahead and clear the land. Michael, how many acres did you clear?
It's about almost 3 acres back there.
And we're going to be installing the necessary chain link fence around it. And then in the years ahead, we will add containment areas for various products. We're very fortunate that the city council has gotten into the landscape business. And that's why we need a laydown yard so that we can grow a lot of our own plants and we can have a lot of our own materials. And I will give a plug to Michael and his staff. If you haven't been by Jacksonville Landing, which is our boat launch facility, they have been converting for probably 6 weeks now all of the mulch areas into stone areas so that we hold down the long-term maintenance. The other point I would like to make is, even though Susan referred to the ball fields as adult fields and youth fields, the master plan purposely calls these ball fields. There may be a point in time where all of these fields become youth fields. And there may be a point in time when we buy additional land and we're able to set up on that land strictly the adult facilities. So we don't want the master plan to call anything in such a way that it will create what I'm gonna call ownership, where someone says, oh no, that master plan says those are adult fields. So if in the next 10 years we decide to convert them to youth fields, we have that flexibility.
Any other comments?
Got you. If I don't say something, my daughter will kill me. The volleyball courts are staying?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Sorry, Sophia, there you go.
Any other? Mr. Rogers? Mr. Lane?
Looks good to me.
Sounds good. I'm sure as we further go down, there's more uh details. Like you said, the 10-year plan. We start talking about the restrooms and the sidewalks and all these other things be coming up to support it. I'm quite sure as we go further, the conversation we're getting more deep into what has to be to make it right with the
Absolutely,
money we have. I should say.
absolutely.
The property that's between the water tower and EMS, is that the city of Jacksonville's?
Yes, ma'am.
Michael, or Susan, either one, are indoor gym scoreboards, are we seeing any movement away from the traditional scoreboard and more to a digital panel? I mean, TVs are getting bigger and bigger and cheaper, and I'm just thinking that somewhere down the line, somebody will figure out that you can put a 4x8 LCD panel and run a scoreboard from a computer. Probably.
Great idea. I think we haven't identified what we're doing at Jack Emmy yet, but I'll look at that. I can also say that we are scheduled to look at replacing our scoreboard inside the gym at the Commons. I want to say next fiscal year. We try to identify some on a replacement schedule, some of our stuff like that. So I think that's a great point. We'll certainly look at it.
I would imagine one of the challenges would be protecting it from some kind of,
Yeah.
Which may be harder to do at somewhere like Jack Emmy, being a smaller facility, but at the Commons may be something, when
Right.
the Commons was originally built, and I may still have it, one of the ways we protected it was we put a fence around, a cage around it, for lack of a better term. And, I'm not sure if it's still up there today, but it was up there for years, and, that's not unheard of to do those sorts of things, as I'm sure you're aware of. Any other comments, questions? Feedback?
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and all of this conversation. This gives us a lot of direction. We're going to continue to work behind the scenes in putting this plan together in a nice packet to present to council. So that will be our next step. And if you have any other thoughts or anything that you think about later, certainly let us know. We still want your feedback, but I am done for the moment, and I'm going to turn it over to Michael for his report. Or director's report. Sorry.
Thank you. So, thank you, first of all, thanks for your input. It's important what we're doing here. Is important to all of us, everybody in here. You wouldn't be on this board, committee, advisory group if you didn't feel it was. And this is gonna hopefully set a path for Jacksonville for the next 10 years and potentially even beyond. And that's how we need to be looking moving forward. So thank you. So where have we been in the last couple of months since we've last seen each other? We actually have just finished taking down all the Christmas decorations, so Christmas is behind us now. One of the things we talked about at our last meeting, I believe, was Branchwood Park and its bridge over there, and that is something we've been able to redo, and we've done it with instead of doing it with wood, we did it with a product called Trex, and it's worked out really well, and we've actually got good feedback from people that utilize that park as we've been over there, and we've got a call or two about it. Just so you know, and I know Jim is a frequent person over at Brook Valley, we're gonna address that bridge in the next couple of months in the same manner and change that one out in the same way. It needs some attention, and that's how we're gonna look at moving forward over there. So just be aware of that. Hopefully, if you've been to Sherwood Forest, or if you've been to Brook Valley Park, you've noticed that we added some rubberized surfaces in those two parks. It's kind of hard to get the full picture of those parks right now with all the wetness that's going on. Brook Valley and Sherwood both look okay, but obviously we'd like to continue to put some sod down. It's just not achievable right now with the weather. But we repositioned some items in those parks, and we hope that we, as time moves forward, we'll take the opportunity to try and do some of those single rider exercise equipment out there that will be able to do some rubberized surfaces in those small areas. We've never done anything like that, but our staff thinks we can take that challenge on. So hopefully you'll see some of the smaller pieces out there over time grow, like we were able to do the larger pieces. So just be aware of that. Dr. Woodruff mentioned Jacksonville Landing. We will be finished, and I'm sure if any of my staff is watching, they appreciate that. We'll be finished this week over at the landing. We got actually our last load of rock at about 2 o'clock today. The weather's tough this week, but I think we're gonna be able to knock that out by Friday. If we're not done this week, we'll obviously be done next week, but that was quite a challenge. But in the long run, this will save the city a lot of money over the next 5 and 10 years because we won't have to remulch, taking up staff time. We won't have to purchase mulch. The rock will be there, and this is a good move long-term for the city of Jacksonville. And we think it provides a quality look, and hopefully you do too. One of the things, if you've been on the trail in the next couple of months, the bollards that are out there, the yellow stobs, we call them bollards in case you know them as something else. You'll see our park staff over the next couple of weeks, months, and this will take some time to do. We're gonna have to sand those down and repaint them. That needs to happen. And that is a process-driven job, but you'll see us begin to start that process soon, and just be aware of that. It'll help out on the lookout there, and we need to do that. If you have been on the trail lately, especially on Bell Fork and heading towards the bridge, you've seen our staff out there doing some pressure washing on the existing fence out there. I would encourage you, if you haven't done that, to take some time to walk out there. It looks like we've put a new fence up in the areas we've done. We've just cleaned it. And it's a world of difference out there. And I think, Mr. Wheeler, have you seen what we've done out there? Would you agree?
Yesterday.
Definitely, yeah. Unfortunately, though, kind of like the bollards, that is a very process-driven thing. It's time-consuming. It's not something we generally would do on a yearly basis, and I wouldn't even recommend even on a 3-year basis, but it's never been done, and that trail's been up a while, and I think it's making a difference out there. Last but not least, actually, one other quick thing. If you've been to Jack Emmy yet for the shade structures, I believe by last meeting, we had already put down the pavers under each structure. Since then, we have added the picnic tables over there, so we're excited about what that facility and what that area is gonna look like when spring rolls around and the splash pad gets open. We'll have a shaded space with some tables underneath each one of those spaces that we've never had before. It should help on the adults as well as the kids there, and I know it'll help on the maintenance of the splash pad because we won't have grass and those sorts of things, dirt coming onto the splash pad. I'm sure we'll still have some of that, but this should cut it down immensely, and it's a good look over there. If you haven't seen it, it's a really good look over there, and we're proud of what we've done over there. And last but not least, and it will sound weird saying this, especially today when it's 30-something or 40-something degrees out, we are gearing up for summer. For us, summer is literally right around the corner. By the time we meet again, I'm sure we'll be already mowing. And we'll have a full staff, bringing on some part-time people by that time. So that is literally around the corner for us. And so that's our report from the park side.
Let me make a couple of comments. One of the other projects that we have not really, I don't know that y'all have talked to them about the gazebo bathrooms that are going down at the marina.
We have not.
Okay.
We mentioned it a little bit on the last meeting, but.
You know, Hurricane Florence didn't do us a lot of favors, but on the other hand, we did at least get a few good things out of it. We filed, because the marina building had 4 feet of water in it, we filed for what FEMA calls an alternative project. As you know, that building is now gone. We've been approved for a $73,000 grant to build a gazebo and restroom there. And we have signed a contract for that to be designed. Fortunately, when we completed the work on the marina, that project had about $100,000 left in it. And through that, we have generated, I'll just say in round numbers, $175,000 that will go towards restrooms and a nice waterfront gazebo. It will be more rectangular, running parallel to the bulkhead, so that you can have a lot of people seated looking out over the water area. But that project must also be completed by September the 13th of 2021, as in 9 months away, 8 months away. So we have that under contract right now, and the reason why it has to be completed is the FEMA grant, which, by the way, was only finalized in November. It took the federal government that long to finalize it. The grant says that it has to be finished within 2 years of the event. Well, the event was September 13th through 15th, so that's gonna happen. The other thing that I would mention to you is our constant efforts for what we call the 3 E's: efficiency, effectiveness, and economy. And that's why when Michael talks to you about replacing the mulch, I can tell you, it costs $135 a ton for brick chips. That's expensive. But let me talk about City Hall. 10 years ago, on a Saturday, several of us, including Michael and others, we worked here all day long, taking up all of the pine straw and putting down the brick pavers. We have not been back. The only thing we do is bring one person in with some weed killer. Otherwise, we were doing this 3 times a year for more than 2 days, simply to put in the pine straw that looked good for a week and a half and then began to bleed out. One of the charges that we try to do is the 3 E's. And when Michael talks about things at the Riverwalk landing, or we talk about other things where we're doing landscaping, everything we do is designed to hold down the long-term cost of that. So just some additional thoughts for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Woodruff. Okay, I'll give you a real quick update for me. Well, I guess I'll go right there. Real quick, before I tell you about our Jacksonville, the Winterfest, I do want to give an update on our basketball. We are providing youth basketball. It is at the Commons only. We're not operating in any of the schools, but we are very proud and we're very happy and pleased that we are providing a very safe and very structured basketball program for about 270 kids. It is very much orchestrated from the moment they get out of their car to the moment they walk up to the building, to this. The whole protocol is very much structured to maintain safety. But the kids are enjoying it and they love it, and parents are very happy that kids are playing. So if you have any questions, you're certainly welcome to let me know, but I just wanted to let you know that we're feeling very good about providing a program, and kids and parents are very pleased that their kids are doing, playing some activities and keeping everybody safe so far. So we're very happy with that. So that is our basketball program. It's been shortened and it's been condensed, but we have a couple more weeks and then we will move on to our spring sports. Registration for that starts in a couple of weeks, and we anticipate, again, another, obviously, COVID protocols with outdoor sports. But we anticipate a good spring season, and we're just happy to get kind of back into some of the things that we love to do as a recreation division, so. And that includes Winterfest. As you know, we did not have our typical Winterfest event. We had a lot of people ask for it, but we were able to tell them we're gonna do something in a version of Winterfest the weekend of February 20th exactly, from 1 to 7. So what we have decided to do is just bring a few of those popular activities, which is the snow sledding, ice skating, we have train rides, and we have pony rides. Those are things we feel like we can do safely. And the way it's gonna work is we're gonna take reservations. So, Mr. Hinkle, you can bring your grandkids, you sign up, registration is gonna open up on the 13th. We have a limited number of tickets, but every hour is gonna be a slot. So we can safely get people in. They have plenty of room to maneuver, and every activity will have lots of space for kids to enjoy those activities. And then we're gonna clear out, sanitize, and then let the next group in. So we feel like we have a lot of parameters in place to keep everybody safe, socially distanced, the kids will have a good time, and the activities themselves will intrinsically keep a sled, the child will keep the snow sled the entire time. In other words, it won't be exchanging hands, it'll be with that child the whole time. So we think we've done a really good job of thinking through every parameter, every opportunity, and keeping all of our kids and parents safe. So we're excited to do that on the 20th of February, in a few weeks per se. Reservations, February 13th, we'll go all day, like I said, one group in, they all leave, clean, sanitize, another group in, they all leave. So we'll do that throughout the day. Any questions on that?
Is there a rain date?
No. No, we're pushing I mean, this is technically our makeup date from December. So fingers crossed, we'll have actually a cold day for snow. We've had some Winterfest where it was, 70 degrees, so hopefully we'll have a nice cold February day, truly, so. Okay. I think it's time for park reports.
Council liaison report.
I believe I'm planning advisory board
Yeah.
liaison,
Okay,
Mr. Jackson.
but I'm next.
okay, planning advisory board liaison.
Okay, our last meeting, the major topic of discussion was food trucks. I believe that one of the major differences is that we moved from the overlay area where we were trying to put food trucks in certain areas to a more, for lack of anything better, a distance model where food trucks were permitted in certain places so that they wouldn't congregate maybe all in one place and that they may be sort of spaced out. But, then the prevailing thought was that we didn't really want to force food trucks to go places where they didn't think they could do good business. And, it's one of those things we'll just have to wait and see. Dr. Woodruff, you got anything you want to add on that? No, sir. Okay.
Okay. Park reports. Start with me, Bill Ross. The only thing I saw with Wooten was the water fountain. It wasn't working at all.
On the bathroom?
Out in the park area. But the restrooms, the equipment, saw one of the workers out there, talked to him a little bit. But everything looked great, very neat.
Thanks for telling us about the water fountain.
Yeah. Okay, next. Lori?
My three all look great. Jack Emiette basketball courts continues being used. Nets were replaced. When I saw them the next day, they were fixed, so one of the workers there saw those. I did have two questions to go back to. On the boat slip rentals, how are we doing on the boat slip rentals? Do we need to give a plug?
We just got a new one this week, as a matter of fact. I believe Dr. Woodruff is signing that agreement, this week. So we've one new one.
Yes, originally we thought we wanted, the first time we've been in the marina business, talking to others, they said, you want annual leases. We found out the people in Jacksonville don't want annual leases. So what we've done is to revise the lease where it is a 3-month lease, and we're now beginning to have some interest. We actually have 2 leases that have been signed. Of course, that means we have 13 still to go. So if anyone is interested in a 3-month lease, please let us know.
And then the other thing, maintenance, year over year with the splash pads, now that we've dipped our toes in here a couple of years, how's the maintenance coming on those?
Maintenance is good. We have started to request some of the change out on the apparatuses, just because we want to keep them fresh. So we've done some of that. We have upgraded a few of the original components, such as the bollard at the splash pad at Jack Emiette. So some things at Jack Emiette are definitely on that cycle. But we're requesting them, and it's extremely popular. So we anticipate that it'll get into a rotation now with both of those, but definitely on some things at Jack Emiette now.
Okay, and then lastly, pool, maybe Holiday City this summer? Are we still looking at that or no?
Yeah, we are actually. We have, we need lifeguards is one thing we're trying to work on. So that's going to be coming out as far as looking for lifeguards, because that's one of our challenges before last summer. But we are certainly gonna look into our possibilities and see, as far as COVID and opening up the pool and working with Holiday City, if that's an option for us again this year.
Okay, awesome, appreciate it, thank you.
Mr. Spring.
Phillips Park was fine, a little wet, but, hey, well, it wasn't wet. My wife and I did, after church Sunday, we did sort of a drive-by and went through, it was a pretty nice drive. We went to all the parks. And so, we were amazed at we don't usually get to see some of the other parks. So it was nice to be able to go down to Northeast Creek, see what's been done there. And Richard Ray, of course, my wife, and her friend, they walk around that, so they see that pretty much all the time, but, a good chance to see things like Wooten Park and the others. I believe we've talked about Sherwood Forest, and, it looks clean as usual. By the way, folks, whether you believe we have a dog park or not, we have parks that are used by dogs, and that's one of the places where I've seen the most dogs is Sherwood, Forest. Sometimes I'll see the occasional one at Branchwood, but by and large, Sherwood seems to be the place where you see it the most. Along that, you might want to think when you start thinking dog parks that maybe something smaller, but inside some of these residential areas with a lot of houses, that might be something that they could use. I know that the Northeast Creek area it's huge. There are lots of houses there. And there may be a vacant lot or something. I remember when we were looking at some kind of an indoor facility, there was a couple of things that were just too small to put a facility on, but maybe big enough that we can corral it for a dog park. Right. And of course, Branchwood, we are so happy about the bridge. It looks very nice, and I think Trex is the way to go. So, thank you very much. That's it for me.
Mr. Hinkle.
Okay, first I want to congratulate Susan and her people. The wife and I took two of the granddaughters to light up the park. Had a great time. Found out that my Christmas trivia was lacking. You went to the stop and they ask you questions. And so mine was, how many reindeer? And I'm like, is this before the song or, after the song? And, so the grandkids are letting me know, and they got theirs right off the bat. But that was a really good time.
Thank you.
We really enjoyed it. So I got that. So speaking of splash pad maintenance, any word on that orange flower at Northeast Creek?
We're working on it.
Okay. All right. The park's been really active. There's been a cross-country meet like every week for the past month or so. So that's been going on. Lots of people playing disc golf all the time, no matter what the weather. So that gets used a lot. They've been doing ball field maintenance. So they look really nice, and those poles out there in the outfield that designate if it's a foul or not. Just walking the dog, and it's like, they're bright orange now. I couldn't figure out if they were new or what, and then I saw a little overspray on the paint. I'm like, okay. So that looks good. And as you drive into Northeast Creek on the ball field side, there's a sign there that says "Your City at Work," which we put there when they were filling in the lagoons. So looking at the master plan, we should probably just leave it up, I guess. But other than that, the park looks good, and it's well utilized.
Thank you.
Mr. Wheeler?
Brook Valley, Michael already mentioned the rubberized surface on the playground. I was there several weeks ago, when they were taking the sand out, and I went by there this evening, and it really looks good in the rain. It looks like a lot of the small single apparatuses have been moved around. The bucking horses, and a couple of, like the jet that's always full of sand, it's gone out of there. Homer, you mentioned dogs. You use Sherwood Forest? Dogs use Brook Valley.
Sure.
And here's another idea, besides the place off a country club by the bypass, is there's that field over there that used to have tennis courts on it. Perhaps a dog park could go in there. And I know we don't want to put it in the vicinity of other use, but there's a parking lot in between the playground and what I'm proposing, so that might be enough separation that it could be a dog park. Northwoods Recreation, I stopped by there this evening. There were about 8 kids left, be checked out. They had to be out of there by 6 o'clock for the after-school program. And last meeting, which it seems like for me was the last century, I mentioned the fact that the rubberized surface around the playgrounds had a rip in it. The attendant said that Parks Post had been out there and it fixed that, so that was taken care of. And he reported no problems. The heat was working and no leaks, so that's all I've got.
Okay, Mr. Lane.
Oh,
You're on
Mr.
mute.
Lane, you've got your mute. Can you unmute? We didn't hear any of that. Mute.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Thank
Very
you.
Oh, glad to hear me. Oh, good. Sorry about that, guys. No, but as Steve was saying, first Park and Recreation guys, you're doing well, and kudos to you guys again, due to the fact of how much everything is going on and how people are always at the park and keeping everything clean and going on. And the parks are being used a lot. I guess people have, really not just enjoying the park, the facility, but just enjoying the park as it is to be at the park. So it's really great. And as Mike mentioned, only thing I had seen in 3 parks doing well, but the only thing I had seen, as you said, on the trail, where those poles at, they're have been discolored, and you said you're going to correct them. And that's about it. But like I said, everything at the park has been used very well. People are using the park real well, and the maintenance is outstanding.
Thank you.
Mr. Rogers.
Yes, sir. So for Georgetown and Sturgeon City, went to both parks a few weeks ago. I have no concerns at all about those parks. Both continue to look good. So, like Mr. Lane said, Mike, kudos to you and your staff.
Thank you. We'll pass that along to the staff. Thank you. Thank you both.
Okay. Let's see, moment.
Okay, that's on me, and Mr. Hinkle set it up for me nicely, because quickly, we had a nice thing, we did have to adjust a lot of our our holiday events. Obviously, we wanted to keep staff and participants safe, so we did a little bit of a change up on our tree lighting ceremony. We did have, Mrs. Claus and Mr. Claus do a live Facebook. She did some storytelling, and he was there, as well as the council and mayor. Nick did some nice trivia virtually with folks that was live on Facebook. And and then the mayor and council came right after a council meeting, which was excellent timing, and we were able to light the beautiful tree that Parks had to go get and light and decorate, but they did an amazing job with that every year, and it really does look beautiful. Every year they've managed to make it look even more. I don't know how you do it, but it looks amazing, so thank you so much. So that was our tree lighting, and then we went right into what Mr. Hinkle mentioned. Light Up the Park was our version of trying to let parents get out of the house, enjoy some festivities. So we had a drive-through event at Riverwalk Park 3 nights in a row, and we were so busy. I worked every night that weekend. It was impressive at the number of people that were just so ready to get out and about, but the park looked, again, amazing. I can't say enough about what the hard work Michael and his crew do to make it look just so beautiful for our citizens. So we started off, and we had different stations. Everybody had a really good time.
That's me in the 3rd car.
Is it? Well, there you go. That was good timing. But it really did look, it really did look nice. Everybody had really, really nice things to say about it. So obviously next year we hope to have our full-blown Winter Fest. So I don't know that we'll bring this back, but we certainly enjoyed it as a staff trying to provide something for our citizens. And then, this was an opportunity for parents, people to distance from Santa, get pictures and, kind of move on. So it was kind of our creative way of doing what we could for our citizens. And then we would typically have gingerbread things for the kids. This year we did it virtually, and we had a winner, and families were able to make and submit on Facebook, and this was the family that won, and they enjoyed it. So that was quick, but certainly Appreciate your time. Any questions on anything? Well, thank you for,
Any member comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, I have a couple.
Okay.
Councilman Jackson tried to get up with some virtual, and, I'm sure he was very frustrated, as we all can be. And also, I wrote down, I followed, Dr. Woodward's advice and, look at the Christmas decorations of Riverwalk, and my wife and I went down there, and y'all did a great job. It was very,
We'll pass
very
that along.
good. Y'all need to be commended for that. We appreciate it. Any other comments?
One other, we've been asked, why there's certain areas of the city have Christmas decorations and other areas don't. Interestingly enough, it's because of the power company that you get your electricity from. We have a long-term relationship with Duke Power. We do not have any relationship relative to Jones Onslow relative to Christmas decorations. They do not allow any decorations anywhere in their system to hang on their poles. Now, that's not a criticism. Jones Onslow is an extremely good corporate member of this community. But for example, we had a lady the other day who called and said, why is it that on Country Club, the Christmas decorations went to a certain point and then stopped? Well, the answer is that's exactly where you change the territory between Duke Power and Jones Onslow. Michael is currently working with Jones Onslow for them to try to set a corporate policy regarding this issue. But just in case you're ever asked why or why not, you can say, well, first thing, tell us who your power provider is, and that will give you your answer. Thank you.
Good to know.
Any other comments? Okay. Motion, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?